Point A has coordinates 5, 8. Point B has coordinates 9, -4. Work out the gradient of AB. So gradient has the formula of y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So A was 5, 8 and B is 9, -4. So let's call 5x1, 8y1, 9x2 and -4 y2. So I'm going to substitute these values in the formula. So it's going to be -4 minus 8 divided by 9 minus 5, which equals to -12 divided by 4, and that is -3. So your gradient of AB is -3. Now, there is no restriction on assigning what x1 is going to be or x2 is going to be. A could have been x2 and y2 as well. But just make sure that if you're assigning like A as x1, then the y value of that would also be y1. A is 213 and B is 10, 1. Circle the midpoint of AB. So your formula for midpoint is x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. So basically, we're trying to find the average of x and y value of the given points. So we're going to do 2 plus 10 divided by 2, and then 13 plus 1 divided by 2. That's going to equal 12 over 2 and 14 over 2. 12 over 2 is 6 and 14 over 2 is 7. So that is your midpoint, and that's going to be this one. Work out the gradient of the straight line through -2, 3 and 1, 9. So once again, -2 is going to be our x1, 3 is going to be y1, 1 is going to be x2, and 9 is going to be y2. Formula for the gradient is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that's going to be 9 minus 3 divided by 1 minus -2. 9 minus 3 is 6. 1 minus -2 is 1 plus 2, which is 3. So that's going to equal to 2. 2 is the gradient of the line connecting these 2 points. A and B are 2 points. Point A has coordinates -2, 4. Point B has coordinates 8, 9. C is the midpoint of the line segment AB. So C is your midpoint, and they want us to calculate the coordinates of C. So midpoint is going to be x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So that's going to be -2 plus 8 over 2 and 4 plus 9 over 2. -2 plus 8 is 6, so 6 over 2. 4 plus 9 is 13, 13 over 2. Since 6 over 2 can be simplified to 3, so it's going to be 3, comma, 13 over 2. That is your midpoint of AB and the coordinates of C. Now, the next part says that D is the point with coordinates 156. Does point D lie on the straight line that passes through A and B? You must show how you work out your answer. So A and B had the coordinates of -2, 4, and 8, 9. So first we need to make the line of equation for AB. So to make the line of equation, first we start with finding the gradient. So gradient of AB is going to be 9 minus 4 over 8 minus -2. That's going to be 5 over 8 plus 2, which is 5 over 10, and that simplifies to 1 over 2. Now that we have the gradient of AB, we're going to find the slope intercept of AB. So slope intercept form is y equals to mx plus c. So let's replace m with 1 over 2 because that's our gradient. Now next step is to find the value of c. To find the value of c, I'm going to put a, which is negative 2, 4, in our equation. So 4 equals to 1 over 2 times negative 2 plus c. That's 4 equals to negative 1 plus c. Take negative 1 to the other side. So 4 plus 1, and that is 5. Now that we have our c value, the equation we have right now is y equals to 1 over 2x plus 5. Now we have to prove whether d lies on this or not. So d is 156. 156. So let's substitute the x value. So y equals to 1 over 2 times 100 plus 5, which basically equals to 50 plus 5, and that is 55. Since the y value is 55, that means d does not lie on the line AB. If the y value was 56, then yes, it would have. So no, it doesn't. A triangle has the vertices of P, Q, and R. The coordinates of P are negative 3 and negative 6. Coordinates of Q are 1, 4, and R has the coordinates of 5, negative 2. M is the midpoint of PQ and N is the midpoint of QR. Prove that MN is parallel to PR. So first, let's start with finding the value of the coordinates of M and N. So since M is the midpoint of PQ, we will find the midpoint by taking the average of the x values and the y values. So PQ, so that's negative 3 plus 1 over 2 and negative 6 plus 4. That's going to be negative 2 over 2 and again negative 2 over 2, which gives us negative 1, negative 1. This is your coordinate of M. Now we find the midpoint of QR. That's going to be 1 plus 5 over 2 and 4 minus 2 over 2, which is going to be 6 over 2 and 2 over 2. That's 3, 1. So this is our coordinate of N. Now that we have the coordinates, we have to prove that MN and PR are parallel. So whenever we're trying to prove if two lines are parallel, our focus is going to be on the gradient. Why gradient? Because gradient of parallel lines is always equal. So we find gradient of MN first. So that's going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. y2 is going to be negative 1 minus 1 over negative 1 minus 3. So that's negative 2 over negative 4. And that's going to equal 1 over 2. So that's your gradient of MN. So now what we do is we find the gradient of PR. P is negative 3, negative 6, and R is 5 minus 2. So we're going to do negative 6 minus negative 2 divided by negative 3 minus 5. So that's going to be negative 6 plus 2 over negative 8, which is -4 over -8, and that simplifies to 1 over 2. Now, as you can see, gradient of mn is equal to gradient of PR. That means both lines are parallel. This is how you prove if two lines are parallel to each other. You show that the gradient is equal for both of them. In this question, it says that A and B are straight lines. Line A has the equation 2y equals to 3x plus 8. Line B goes to the points -1, 2, and 2, 8. Do lines A and B intersect? So we already have the equation for line A. So what we need to do first is find the equation for line B. So let's start with finding the gradient of line B, which is going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, 8 minus 2 over 2 minus -1. That's going to be 6 over 2 plus 1, which is 6 over 3, and that equals to 2. So your m for line B is 2. Now let's write the slope-intercept form for line B. Slope-intercept form is y equals to mx plus c. Since we know the value of m, so it's going to be y equals to 2x plus c. Now, next step is to figure out the value of c. So to figure out the value of c, we can put either of these points in this equation and see what the value of c is going to be. I'm going to pick the first one. So 2 equals to 2 times -1 plus c. 2 equals to -2 plus c. 2 plus 2 is c, and c equals to 4. If we had chosen the second set, 2, 8, we would have gotten the same answer. But since it was easy to solve with -1 and 2, so I went with that. So I would always suggest to go for points that are easier to solve rather than like having a long and tedious calculation. So that means y equals to now 2x plus 4. This is our equation for line B. So now we have to show whether these two lines intersect or not. Line A was 2y equals to 3x plus 8. So that means y would be 3 over 2x plus 8. Now if we compare line A and line B, we can see that both the lines have a different gradient. Line B has a gradient of 2 and line A has a gradient of 3 over 2. Since the gradients are completely different, that means they would intersect. Because if they were exactly the same, then that would mean that the lines were parallel. Parallel lines never meet. They're always running side by side. So since the gradients are different, yes, they do intersect.